Hello, 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 world. This is Louise Hicks, your host of Aim to Purpose Spiritual Empowerment Hour. And in this episode, we are going to talk about the Jeffrey Epstein's case. So, again, please share, like, give it a thumbs up, and by all means, leave your comments because we're going to talk about body language. Because I know you've been hearing or seeing what it appears to be. There was a client list. All of a sudden, there's no client list. How can a client list be on your desk, according to the Attorney General, Pam Bundy? And next thing you know, it's not on her desk anymore. There's no client list. And what about Jeffrey Epstein suicide? Did he commit suicide? Was it suicide or was it murder? I know all these curious minds are wondering now, which is it? Because there seems to be some type of cover up. It makes you wonder here. So let's watch this video about body language and let's see what your thoughts are when it comes to detecting maybe what could be lies in the body language. So let's check it out here and see what you think about it, okay? So let me do a share here. Give me a moment here. And we're going to do a share and see what I know. I studied body language a little bit, but I'm not a body language expert by no means. However, it appears that the government is trying to cover up something here about Jeffrey Epstein. And as you all know, he was accused of sex trafficking and all kinds of, just various acts, inappropriate acts, among those being sex trafficking. So let's hear what this gentleman, he's going to tell you who he is. He is a body language person and psychologist.
Hey everybody, Dr. G here. I'm a clinical and forensic psychologist as well as a body language expert, and today we're going to be analyzing behavior and body language to see if we can determine whether or not there's actually an Epstein client list. Before we get started with this, couple of quick things. One, I wanted to make sure you know this is not a psychological evaluation of any kind. These are just my opinions. In addition to that, I do want to remind you to like and subscribe if you want to see more content just like this. All right, let's go. We're going to be looking at 3 different clips today, starting with an interview with Attorney General Pam Bondi. This is from February of this year. Then we're going to be looking at White House Press Secretary Karolineleavitt. And then after that, we are going to be looking at President Trump and Pam Bondi together. All right, let's just jump right in.
About the DOJ may be releasing the list of Jeffrey Epstein's clients. Will that really happen?
It's sitting on my desk right now to review. That's been a directive by President Trump. I'm reviewing that. I'm reviewing JFK files, MLK files.
Now, normally I break things down as we go, but I wanted you to see that whole clip, and now we're going to go back and break it down bit by bit.
Donald Trump has talked about the DOJ may be releasing the list of Jeffrey Epstein's clients.
Immediately. Now, he specifically said releasing a list of Jeffrey Epstein's clients. That is specifically what was said. You saw her nodding her head as that was stated. There was nothing about files, nothing more broad than that. It was a very specific question, and she had a very specific head nodding response to that, which obviously anybody would interpret as affirmative, as yes.
Talked about the DOJ may be releasing the list of Jeffrey Epstein's clients. Will that really happen?
It's sitting on my desk right now.
Now, this part right here is a little bit more ambiguous. So after he said, is that really going to happen? The first thing you saw was her head doing this. Now, the challenge here is that sometimes people do shake their head for emphasis. And you see her do that in a way that appears to be emphasis after this. This is a little bit ambiguous. And I do like to be very specific about what I'm seeing. And if you look, her head is very horizontally moving like this. To me, that looks like a head shake. It looks like she's saying no, but that is potentially up for interpretation. Let's watch that again, and then we're going to keep going.
Of Jeffrey Epstein's clients? Will that really happen?
It's sitting on my desk right now to review. That's been a directive.
So it's sitting on my desk right now for review. You saw the head nod with that. And now you see her doing this. Now, as she's doing this, this looks more like for emphasis than this did.
That's been a directive by President Trump. I'm reviewing that. I'm reviewing JFK files, MLK files.
And you see the way she's leaning in. JFK files, MLK files. All of this seems very authentic. So when she said she has the file on her desk, there's nothing in her body language that would suggest that that is not true. Now, whether or not she plans to release it or thinks it will ever actually get released, that's a little bit more ambiguous to me, but it seems very clear that she is telling the truth and she is being very specific when she is responding to whether or not there is an Epstein list on her desk. On top of that, she is someone who speaks very precisely. You're going to see that later, and I get later she's trying to clarify this point, but she is someone who is very precise with her language. So I would be very surprised if somebody said something that was inaccurate and she didn't correct them at that time. That's very much the way that she typically is.
By President Trump. I'm reviewing that. I'm reviewing JFK files, MLK files. That's all in the process of being reviewed because that was done at the directive of the president from all of these agencies.
So have you seen anything?
So this was several months ago. Now what we're going to be looking at is White House Press Secretary Karolineleavitt responding to questions the day after the Department of Justice came out and said there is no Epstein list. One of the main reasons I created this channel is to help people stay safe, whether it's through recognizing body language or just understanding the warning signs of danger. In today's digital age, your personal information could be at risk, leaving you vulnerable to scams, identity theft, and fraud. That's why I'm excited to share today's sponsor, Aura. Aura is an all-in-one digital safety solution that helps protect you and your family from data breaches, fraud, and identity theft. Here's the reality. The less personal information you have online, the safer you are. Aura helps remove your data from those shady broker websites that sell it to scammers. They monitor the dark web for your information, alert you to potential threats, and even allow you to lock your credit file with just a tap. Their features are designed to stop problems before they happen. Aura also comes with military-grade encryption to secure your online activity and a password manager to keep your login safe. And with $1 million in identity theft insurance per adult on your account, up to 5 people can be protected. It is an incredible layer of security for your entire family. As someone who's passionate about safety, I believe in taking every step to protect yourself physically and digitally. Don't wait until something happens. Go to aura.com/Dr. G and start your 14-day free trial today and see if your data has already been leaked. Take charge of your digital safety today. Thanks to Aura for sponsoring this video.
Caroline, the DOJ and FBI have now concluded there was no Jeffrey Epstein client list. What do you tell MAGA supporters who say they want anyone involved in Jeffrey Epstein's alleged crimes to be held accountable?
This administration wants anyone who has ever committed a crime to be held accountable, and I would argue this administration has done more to lock up bad guys than certainly the previous.
All right, let's look at what her body language is doing right now.
Be held accountable.
This administration wants anyone who has ever committed a crime to be held accountable, and I would argue this administration.
So you can hear her, she has a point to make. She's being very emphatic. She's being very direct, but she's not addressing specifically what was asked. And this is something that she doesn't always do. She is someone who is very direct. She tends to respond to questions directly. But as you can hear, right now she is deflecting a lot, and she's using a lot of emphasis as she's deflecting to make sure you pay attention to exactly what she's saying, not what you're asking.
Administration has done more to lock up bad guys than certainly the previous administration. And
so as you can see, she raised her eyebrows, certainly more than the previous administration. So rather than focusing on, hey, the Department of Justice has done an amazing job, we know for sure this is all good, this is all right, she's deflecting once again. We're better than the last administration was. That's the message right here. And once again, it's deflecting what people are really asking about.
Done more to lock up bad guys than certainly the previous administration. And the Trump administration is committed to truth and to transparency. That's why the Attorney General and the FBI Director.
Now look at her body right here. As she's saying all of this, she's moving around a lot. And she, once again, is somebody who's very direct. It seems like it takes a lot to rattle her, and it seems like right now you're seeing more nervous energy than usual. She is not able to stand very still. You're seeing her scoot around, which probably means there's a lot of adrenaline going on. That probably means there's a lot of feeling as she's having to field these questions. Probably much easier to respond to the previous questions during this.
Committed to truth and to transparency. That's why the Attorney General and the FBI Director pledged to do an exhaustive review of all of the files related to Jeffrey Epstein's crimes and his death. And they put out a memo in conclusion of that.
So they put out a memo. Watch her hands right here.
To Jeffrey Epstein's crimes and his death. And they put out a.
So she wants you to pay attention to the memo. She doesn't want you to ask her questions. They put out a memo. That's the end of it. So she's essentially kicking the can to somebody else.
Memo in conclusion of that review. There was material they did not release because, frankly, it was incredibly graphic and it contained not something that's appropriate for public.
Now, you can hear the pressure in her voice as she's talking about this. So she's talking about that they're not going to release the type of content that they ultimately have, which nobody would expect them to. Nobody has asked for that. Not one person in all of this has ever asked for them to release anything other than the names of the people that were involved, because that was what was promised. So as she's getting aggressive with this, that's a way to shut people down, to say, we're not going to release that. That's not appropriate. But nobody's asking for that. So once again, it deflects exactly what everybody's wanting. And it's a way to shame and stop people from asking for the client list, even though what she's saying is actually entirely unrelated.
Consumption, but they committed to an exhaustive investigation. That's what they did. And
now, this was the most interesting part of this whole thing. Watch her mouth right here.
Consumption, but they committed to an exhaustive investigation.
There's two important parts here. One is that she's looking down right now. That's when you don't really want to see the response of the person you're talking to. You may be saying something that you don't believe, or saying something where you really just don't want to see how they're going to react, even if it's brief. And you also see this kind of frown. This is a way of being both uncomfortable and a way of showing indifference. It seems to be that she's saying, well, they decided to do this. So you see that this is maybe her real reaction. While she is very good at staying on target with what she's talking about, I'm not entirely sure personally if she actually believes what she's saying. I don't think that she's been given different information and said, hey, lie about this stuff. I think she's saying exactly what she has been given to say. I'm just not sure that she actually believes it.
For public consumption, but they committed to an exhaustive investigation. That's what they did, and they provided the results of that. That's transparency.
Follow up on that,
Sure.
Caroline. Okay, so
As this next question is being asked, you see her back up a little bit. We do that to gain emotional distance because this is probably making her uncomfortable. Watch this right here.
The results of that. That's transparency.
follow up on that,
Sure.
Caroline. Okay,
You can see the head bouncing back a little bit. There's discomfort with this.
so the FBI looks at the circumstances.
You can also see she's taking in a big breath through her nose. You can see the chest raise. She is appearing once again more uncomfortable than she typically does during these White House press briefings.
That's transparency.
Follow up on that,
Sure.
Caroline. Okay, so the FBI looks at the circumstances surrounding the death of Jeffrey Epstein. According to the report, this systematic review revealed no incriminating client list. So what happened to the Epstein client list that the Attorney General said she had on her desk?
Well, I think if you go back and look at what the Attorney General said in that interview, which was on your network on Fox
I've
News.
got the quote.
Go ahead.
John Roberts
You saw her lips pucker right there. That's both stress and uncertainty.
General said in that interview, which was on your network on Fox
I've
News.
got the quote.
Go ahead.
John Roberts said, DOJ may be releasing the list of Jeffrey Epstein's clients. Will that really happen? And she said, it's sitting on my desk right now to review.
Yes, she was
What?
saying the entirety of all of the paperwork, all of the paper in relation to Jeffrey Epstein's.
So you can see her using emphasis to try to once again deflect the question. Watch this right here.
Entirety of all of.
So she's trying to illustrate. So pay attention to my hands. Pay attention to the fact that she has all this paperwork. That's what she's trying to illustrate. Don't pay attention to the question you just asked. Pay attention to what I'm saying.
All of the paperwork, all of the paper in relation to Jeffrey Epstein's crimes. That's what the Attorney General.
And she didn't even pronounce Epstein's name correctly. You'll hear she said Epstein. Now, we're all allowed to say things wrong. I do it all the time. But it has to do with the fact that I think that this is causing her to feel more nervous than she typically does, because she is not speaking as fluidly. She is messing up a little bit more than she usually does when she does these kinds of press briefings.
The paperwork, all of the paper in relation to Jeffrey Epstein's crimes. That's what the Attorney General was referring to, and I'll let her speak for that. But again, when it comes to the FBI and the Department of Justice, they are more than committed to ensuring that bad people are put behind bars. They have an operation going on right now called Summer Heat, which has our murder rate trending in the lowest direction in United States history. Their emphasis on violent crime and locking up violent criminals.
When she's talking about things that are not specifically related to this Epstein issue, she gets louder because, once again, if she speaks loudly, she thinks that will be what people hear.
has led to the arrest of 14,000 violent criminals. That's a 62% increase from the same time period last year. So this Attorney General and the FBI Director are committed to putting bad people behind bars where they belong. They promised an exhaustive review. That's what they did. For any further details, I would refer you to the Department of Justice.
Kate. Thanks, Caroline. With Prime Minister Netanyahu visiting the White House today.
After she finished that, you saw her licking her lips. There's probably a lot of relief that that is over, and now she's moving on. Now we're going to move on to a clip of both Pam Bondi and President Trump.
Your memo and release yesterday.
You can already see the look of disapproval on President Trump's mouth. When he purses his lips together in this way, that is a distinct look of disapproval.
Your memo and release yesterday on Jeffrey Epstein, it left some lingering mysteries. One of the biggest ones is whether he ever worked for a American or foreign intelligence agency. The former labor secretary.
That was a look of confusion. You saw her mouth close, her head shake. She was not anticipating they were going to ask about that. There's so many other questions people are concerned about, the client list, all of that kind of stuff. So the idea that he asked about him working for a foreign intelligence agency threw her through a loop.
For a American or foreign intelligence agency, the former labor secretary who was Miami U.S. Attorney Alex Acosta, he allegedly said that he did work for an intelligence agency. So could you...
You can see she's nodding along with this. She does want to make sure that the reporter feels heard. So part of that is she is trying to connect right now, because I do think she wants to address this. She wants to get these things out of the way.
Resolve whether or not he did, and also could you say why there was a minute missing?
I think if anybody has already seen this knows that he is getting ready to talk, but you're seeing some precursor to that. You're seeing him prepare for that.
Intelligence agency. So could you resolve whether or not he did, and also could you say why there was a minute missing from the jailhouse tape on the latest set?
Yeah, sure. If
Could I just interrupt for 1 second? Are you still talking about...
So you can see Pam Bondi, she brushed her hair behind her ear after that. We do that to ventilate a little bit when we're starting to feel anxious. Even though she doesn't have an overt sign of anxiety, even though she's nodding, she looks like she's keyed in. There's little things like that that suggest that this is a high-stakes, intense situation.
Yeah, sure. If
Could I just interrupt for 1 second? Are you still talking about Jeffrey Epstein? This guy's been talked about for years. You're asking, we have Texas, we have this, we have all...
So watch President Trump's hands right here. All right, so he's got his hands up like this. Now, in some ways, sometimes when people do this, it's a way to say stop. It's also a way to say, look, I haven't done anything.
I'm going to say stop for a minute myself, because this is very interesting. Again, I'm Louise Hicks, your host of this podcast, Aim to Purpose Spiritual Empowerment Hour. And I find this very interesting. And I think he's doing a good job of analyzing Dr. G, as he calls himself. He's doing a little bit. I know a little bit about body language, and because I have a bachelor's degree in social work and I've done research and so forth, but I think he's doing a good job of analyzing this body language. And it's interesting how Donald Trump jumps in, your president jumps in because he did not want her to speak. That's my analogy. And he brings in about Texas. However, where was he when I live in Texas most of the time? And I live in California as well. I live both places because those are my homes. However, while this disaster, and I just did a video on that, on the disaster here in Texas, and he didn't make an effort to come to Texas right away with all of this disaster going on, July the 4th, with these camps, Camp Mystic, Camp Bandina. He didn't make any effort to come down here until days later. But now he deflects and goes and talks about Texas. So we're going to finish. So I'd love to hear your thoughts and comments about the body language and everything. But let's carry on. But I thought that was interesting that he would throw that in about Texas and wouldn't allow her to speak because he wanted to make sure, I guess, I'm thinking he wanted to make sure he put something out there ahead so she can take a hint and she doesn't say anything that he does not want her to say, your Attorney General, Pam Bondi. So we'll carry on, but that's interesting he's talking about Texas, but he made no effort as if Texas was such a priority over this Epstein all of a sudden. But he didn't come to Texas right away. He just came, I think, Friday I believe he just came Friday. So that's interesting. So we really have to watch these politicians because we know it's a lot of corruption going on. But I'll give you my opinion once this is completed because he's almost done and we're not going to make it too long. So let's carry on here. But I just thought I'd throw that in. And again, I'm Louise Hicks. You're watching Aim to Purpose Spiritual Empowerment Hour. Please share this video because I'd like to know what others have to say about it, and give it a like, thumbs up, and let's move forward with it.
Wrong. And I don't mean that as in he hasn't done anything related to the Epstein situation. He's trying to say, I made the right decisions here. Like, I'm the one who's in charge. I've made the right decisions. Whatever the DOJ has come to, we need to move on.
Are you still talking about Jeffrey Epstein?
And his body language right here is actually very open. So I know there's a lot of theories about why they think that President Trump is wanting to keep this suppressed or something like that. I don't think, just to be clear from the body language we're seeing, that it's anything like that he's afraid of being exposed for something. I think that it's more that he's afraid that people will see it as a failure on his part, that his administration did something that is incredibly unpopular with everybody, regardless of which side of the political spectrum they're on. This is gravely unpopular, what has happened here.
This guy's been talked about for years. You're asking, we have Texas, we have this, we have all of the things. And are people still talking about this guy?
So once again, this is an odd deflection because people don't really care about Jeffrey Epstein. They care about the fact that they believe there are other people that are involved that are roaming free. So that it's a strange deflection, and I'm sure that President Trump knows what people are actually concerned about. So why he's choosing to try to sort of guilt people into thinking about or talking about this right now, or to not talk about these things right now because of what's going on in Texas and all of that, which is incredibly important. It's an incredibly strange and different type of deflection than he normally does.
Creep? That is unbelievable. Do you want to waste the time, and do you feel like answering?
I don't mind answering.
I mean, I can't believe you're asking a question on Epstein at a time like this.
See, he's using the hands for emphasis. I can't believe you're asking a question. And he's someone who focuses a lot on relationships. He focuses on the person that's sitting in front of him. So he is going to want the journalist to not want to ask questions like that again.
But we're having some of the greatest success and also tragedy with what happened in Texas. It just seems like a desecration, but you go ahead.
Sure. First, to back up on that, in February, I did an interview on Fox, and it's been getting a lot of attention because I said I was asked a question about the client list, and my response.
So the first you saw the air quotes when it came to client list, as though this is something that doesn't exist.
As I said, I was asked a question about the client list, and my response was, it's sitting on my desk to be reviewed, meaning the file, along with the JFK, MLK files as well.
Now, she's someone who is I said this earlier, she's someone who's very precise when she speaks. So the idea that she would have misspoken or that's not what she meant seems unusual. It would be very surprising that it would be taking her this long to clarify that point.
That's what I meant by that. The file, along.
See, when she said the file, that makes me a little bit concerned that there's something deceptive about the way that she's saying that. She's closing her eyes, she says file, and consciously we're doing that so we don't have to look at the person when we say it.
Sitting on my desk to be reviewed, meaning the file, along with the JFK, MLK files as well. That's what I meant by that. Also, to the tens of thousands of video, they turned out to be downloaded by that disgusting Jeffrey Epstein.
So once again, she's using the same line that Karolineleavitt did, which is that we're not going to share. We don't want people to see this awful evidence. Nobody's asking. Nobody would want to see that. That has nothing to do with anything that's upsetting anybody.
They were never going to be released, never going to see the light of day.
See, never going to be released. She's saying this aggressively. Focus on what I'm saying right here. This is the message I want you to get. When it's immaterial, because nobody cares about that. That has nothing to do with anything anybody's ever asked for.
To him being an agent I have no knowledge about that. We can get back to you on that. And the minute missing from the video.
So when she says that, I have no knowledge of that. Watch this.
To him being an agent, I have no knowledge about that. We can get back to you.
I have no knowledge about that. We can get back to that. I actually think that's true. Whether or not she believes it or thinks maybe there's something to that, she does not have information on that, I don't think.
On that. And the minute missing from the video, we released the video showing definitively the video was not conclusive.
So look at the way she's emphasizing this now. She wasn't moving her hands that much, but now she's really talking about this minute missing. She's looking over at President Trump and Marco Rubio. She is really trying to emphasize this, and I think that she means this. Whether or not you think that's why that minute was cut out, I'm sure plenty of people have their own theories about that, but this is something she believes. She believes that this minute is not cut out for any sort of nefarious reason. She actually does believe that this minute is cut out because that's the way that the software works. We're going to get into that. We're going to see in a second. But as she's looking around at everybody, this is the first time she's trying to connect with other people because she's trying to say, look, this is true. This is really something that's happened.
Showing definitively the video was not conclusive, but the evidence prior to it was.
And she just said the video was not conclusive, which fascinates me. So in other words, they're saying that there's nothing on the video that's conclusive about what happened to him, but I thought they said that the whole video did prove exactly what, at least Dan Bongino had said, the video is going to prove our point. The quality's not great, but it proves it. She's saying the video is inconclusive.
Showing definitively the video was not conclusive, but the evidence prior to it was showing he committed. And what was on that, there was a minute that was off the counter. And what we learned from Bureau of Prisons was every night, they redo that.
See, look how much more animated she is when she's talking about this, because this is something that I think she actually fully believes.
That video is old, from like 1999. So every night the video is reset, and every night should have the same minute missing. So we're looking for that video to release that as well, showing that a minute is missing every night. And that's it on Epstein.
And then the smile at the end. We oftentimes do that as a way to punctuate what we're saying, to say, I'm not answering anything else about this. Let's stop now. Hopefully this has helped you better understand some of the behavior and body language that we saw. So to answer the question, is there an Epstein list? Well, based on the body language, it certainly seems likely that there probably is. Based on what she said at the beginning, it seemed very affirmative that there was a list sitting on her desk. It also seemed like later on, we're seeing people that are showing signs that maybe they are not being entirely forthcoming. Do I think that there's a list? I think that there probably is. Do I think that based on that first clip that pambondi knew that that list would never be released? That seems very possible. Like I said, that's the most ambiguous thing out of all of these clips that we saw. But basically what we're seeing, at least more currently when we look at Karolineleavitt, President Trump, and more recently pambondi, it looks like they are trying to deflect what people's concerns are. They're not. They're talking about bringing people to justice, and they're talking about the awful content that has been collected, but nobody is asking them to release anything like that, and that's really what they're emphasizing. So if you have anything else you want me to analyze, or there's anything else you want me to look at, please let me know in the comments below. Last thing before we get finished up is I do want to remind you to like and subscribe if you want to see more content just like this. All right, thanks for watching.
Okay, thank you, Dr. G, for that information, and I'm going to stop sharing because that was pretty interesting, analyzing the body language of these people. And in my watching it, I think from my perspective that there was a list. However, it appears to be a cover-up, because you as an attorney general, you should know what's on your desk if you're going to boldly make that statement months ago, and all of a sudden, after you've reviewed it, it appears that no one wants to reveal the client list, because perhaps it may be some high-powered people on that list. And of course, as he was saying, that's not what they're asking of victims. They are deflecting, I feel, as well. So again, I'm Louise Hicks, your host of this podcast, Angel Purpose Spiritual Empowerment Hour. And share. We'd like to hear more, because it appears there may be a cover-up. We don't know for sure, but And we don't know. There's a lot of suspicion going on around about Jeffrey Epstein committing suicide as opposed to him being murdered. So draw your own conclusions about everything that's out here and what's not out here. My conclusion is I believe it's more to it than meets the eye, and I believe there is some type of deflection here. That's my belief based on what I've been hearing, and I've kind of taken a step back and been observing to see and hear more information. And based on everything I'm hearing, seeing, it appears it's more to this than meets the eye. And we know, as I stated earlier, there's a lot of corruption in our government, and there's a lot of lies. The country is chaotic. Everything is a hot mess right now. So, what are your thoughts? Leave your comments. I'm Louise Hicks, and we shall maybe never know for sure whether he was murdered or committed suicide, whether there is a client list in which it's suspect. And again, Louise Hicks here. Please share, like, thumbs up, leave your comments. Interesting body language analysis there. And thank you, Dr. G, for providing that body language analysis. So, with that said, I'd like to thank all of my subscribers, supporters once again. I appreciate you. And I always tell you, your power lies within you. Let it loose because your destiny is your command. And remember 2 Timothy 1:7, for God has not given us the spirit of fear, but of love, power, and a sound mind. And with that said, much love, and I'll see you in the next video.